We all know Stan Lee, the creator of Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, the X-Men, the head of Marvel Comics, and the king of comic books. But let's look at who he was before he found all of his success. Stan Lee was born Stanley Martin Lieber and on December 28th, 1922 in New York City, New York. His parents were Celia and Jack Lieber. He had a young brother named Larry, with whom he shared a room in New York. As a young child, he had a love of books and movies that influenced him in his life. He always wanted to write a great novel. He graduated from high school at the age of 16. Stan went off and fought in World War II. He was a member of the Signal Corps and dealt with telegraphs and wires and communications. After World War II, Stan had many jobs, from delivering sandwiches to the Rockefeller Center, being an office worker at a trouser manufacturer, selling subscription for the New York Herald Tribune, ushering at the Ravioli Theater on Broadway, writing obituaries for the news service, and writing press releases for the National Tuberculosis Center. He did all of these things before he became a comics book writer. In 1939, he started as an assistant at New Timely Comics, which would later become Marvel Comics. The first comic he ever wrote on was a Captain America comic in May of 1941. He'd begun using the pseudonym of Stan Lee instead of his real name Stanley Lieber, which he later made into his legal name. In 1961, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee created the Fantastic Four, the first family of Marvel. This then led to a trend of Stan teaming up with him and Steve Ditko to create tons of superheroes that went on to have great careers, from Spider-Man to X-Men to the Incredible Hulk to even Doctor Strange. Stan became the publisher of Marvel Comics in 1972 and then moved to the West Coast to become a part of the film ventures of Marvel Comics. From 1965 until 2001, Stan Lee created a column in many of the comic books coming out of Marvel known as Stan's Soapbox. It would come in the back of each comic book, and it would give him a chance to talk about things that were happening in the world, and really gave a chance for people who were growing up and reading these comics to get a connection with Stan. He wasn't just a faceless man producing comics. He was a guy who you'd read about and read his opinion in every single comic book you'd get. In 2008, after years of Marvel film adaptations being done by companies other than Marvel Comics, from Fox to Sony, the first of the what we now know as the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies were made. Iron Man, which then set off a long spree of movies lasting until now, with films from the Avengers to Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. Stan always made a commitment to cameo in each one of these films to let people know, as he did with his Stan Soapbox back in the day, that this company was not ran by a bunch of faceless people. It was ran by him, Stan Lee, and he would show himself in every film. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to show himself in all of the MCU films to date, given that because he died very tragically on November 12th, 2018,